Well, we're in Psalm 18, and we are coming towards the end of this psalm. David has placed his trust and hope in God. He has kind of staked his claim there. He starts the psalm by saying, I love you, Lord. And then he begins to explain his distress, verse 6 and verse 4 and 5, how terrible his circumstances was, how many enemies had risen up against him. Verses 7 through 16 or 15, he talks about God, actually verse 16, he talks about God with cataclysmic circumstances, disrupting all of David's enemies, riding to the rescue and saving David and moving really all the forces of heaven and earth to David's best and to his interest and on his behalf. So verse 18, verse 17, verse 18, David explains how God delivered him. God brought him out. He took away his calamity. He put him in a large place. He delivered him because he delighted in him. Then verses 20 through 28, David explains how he chose to do right and how God honored that. He's looking at his circumstances and he's realizing he was overwhelmed. But he made a choice not to avenge, not to scramble together his own plan, not to react or respond in his flesh. And he is explaining in verse 20 and forward how God honored that, how God rewarded his decision to be faithful to God's principles, even when they didn't make sense to David. And he comes out of verse 28 talking about God lighting his candle, God establishing his life, God establishing his purpose and giving him his place in life and giving him light in the darkness, being able to see clearly what his role is and how to move forward in life. And then verse 29, David celebrates, verses 29 through, oh goodness, all the way down. We've had such a great time in this psalm. Really around verse 45 and 46, 47, David is explaining how God subdued people under him, how God let him defeat his enemies and made him basically impenetrable and unconquerable, undefeatable. And David is doing this battle. He's doing this valiantly. He's doing it on behalf of his people as a God-appointed king. He's fulfilling his God-given role. And he's talking about how God allowed all these things to happen as a result of David's submission to him. And we'll pick it up in verse 46. The Lord liveth, and blessed be my rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. One of the big takeaways for me in this psalm is that David is giving God all credit, all glory for everything. Every single success that David experienced, he gave credit to God. Now, David could have claimed to be a qualified sling thrower and giant killer. David could have on his resume put all sorts of exploits and how he hid and stealthily avoided detection. He could have talked about all of his ninja skills, but he didn't. He said, God delivered me. God is the rock of my salvation. He's my fortress. He's my tower. He realized at the core, it wasn't his stealth, it wasn't his strategy, it wasn't his skill in battle that defeated his enemies. It was God that gave him those skills. It was God that gave him that insight. It was God that made it all work out, that created the circumstances that allowed his decisions to fall into place. So he's giving God the credit. I'm just looking where I left off. Verse 47, it is God that avengeth me and subdueth people under me. He delivereth me from mine enemies. Such great principles. He's giving God the credit. It's all God. It's all his work. But he's also giving us hope. Hey, we have a deliverer. We have one that's going to deliver us from our enemies. Yea, thou liftest me up above those that rise up against me. Thou hast delivered me from the violent man. It's amazing to think of the contrast there, that David had men literally rising up in resistance against him, powerful men, strong men, armies of men. And God flipped the tables and said, I'm going to lower them and elevate David. And it was completely providential. There was nothing that those men could do to stop it. There was nothing that David could do to start it, except for honor God and trust him and wait on him. But David's trust was such in God that no matter what God did, he would still trust God. He declared his trust in God regardless of the outcomes. And then God honored him with favorable outcomes. So he says in verse 49, "Therefore will I give thanks unto thee." So this is our first devotion of November. And I really want to challenge you to let this not just be the month where Thanksgiving happens to fall. I want to encourage you, just make a decision right now today that you will give thanks all month long, that you will express thanks. We're starting a series in 2 weeks. It's just going to be a short series. The last 3 weeks of November, we're calling it Thankful. 3 quick weeks of diving into gratitude and thanks. But notice that David said, "I will give thanks." Give thanks. So thanks is not something you merely feel. Thanks is something you give. It's something you express. I don't think it's possible to really be thankful if it's not expressed. Now, you might, again, have an emotional sense of gratitude, but thankfulness in its essence is expressed. And so I would encourage you to do a little homework assignment today. Make a list of, I don't know how many days there are in November, 30 or 31? I guess I should know that, but make a list of 30 people that you want to write a thank you note to, and just write one a day, or decide you'll do 60 and write 2 a day. But decide that you will give thanks to the Lord and to people in your life that He's placed in your life, people that love you. Decide that you will determine this month, you'll just give thanks. And by the way, start tomorrow. Start by giving thanks to God for the election, for the outcome of the election, whatever it is, okay? There's something about giving thanks for all things, always, without ceasing. Give thanks. It changes your orientation. It changes your context and your perspective to give thanks. So David says, "I will give thanks unto thee, O Lord, among the heathen, and sing praises unto thy name." So David is giving thanks. He's also giving witness, okay, among the heathen. Hey, he's not just saying, "I'm going to give thanks to God." I'm going to give thanks to God among the heathen. He's going to give thanks in a way that says, look at my God. Look at how great He is. Look at how loving and wonderful He is. Don't you want to trust Him too? And so there's the witness component. And then David thirdly gives worship and sing praises unto thy name. You know what? You want to change your emotional health this entire winter. Decide every day that you're going to give thanks, that you're going to give witness, and that you're going to give worship. That you're going to fill your life, heart and mind and voice with songs of praise to your God. Well, honestly, that is enough for today. We have one more verse. So we'll leave that one for tomorrow, okay? We'll pick it up in verse 49 and 50 tomorrow in Psalm 18. I have loved this psalm. I hope you have too. What a great psalm. There is so much here. We could have spent a lot more time, but we've thought through it, we've grown through it, we've learned through it, and I hope you'll give God the credit today for whatever He does in your life. Hope you'll trust Him for whatever He does this week in your life, and determine to give Him and others thanks, and give someone else witness this week. A lot of people around you are going to be sad. One way or another, a lot of people are going to think this is the end of America one way or another. So reach out to them and give them witness of the one who really holds your hope. Have a great Monday, my friends, and have a great week, and I'll see you tomorrow.